And Antara, good evening. I think it's a good move finally that people are going to be able to fly again. People have been waiting. People have been stranded across the country, and now that the lockdown seems to be partly opening up, it's a good idea to kind of allow people to fly back home as well, wherever possible and wherever it is safe to do so. In terms of the capping of airfares, I don't think it is a great move to put a hard cap. I think in the past what the government has been doing is, in the cases of natural calamities, put a advisory to airlines that, the fare shouldn't go beyond an X amount and so on, which has been a soft measure, sort of, but it did not really go ahead and cap airfares. So I don't think there is a need to take in such a measure at this point of time. Perhaps they can just advise airlines again, just like the earlier times, and leave them to make the best judgment out of it.
Hi Ajay, good evening. Ruchi Bhatia here. Just want to understand from you in terms of, future of flying for passengers. How do you see things shaping up? What is going to be the new norm? We're given to understand that now passengers will be allowed to they will be asked to in fact wear masks in the plane, and not just that, only one baggage that you can now carry as well. Having said that, how do you think the future of flying will look like?
I think the future of flying is going to be much more sanitized for the time being, as compared to what we were used to before March. At this point of time, we can totally expect masks to be the new norm. I'm also given to understand that some airports have put out tenders to be able to sell other PPE at the airport as well. So masks are a given. Meals are a no-go anymore on domestic flights. I think the likes of Vistara are going to put out boxed meals on your seats before you arrive, and the likes of Indigo and SpiceJet are not going to sell any meals any longer for the time being. Beyond that, like you already mentioned, no carry-on baggages, and there will be a limitation perhaps on checked baggages as well for the time being. So these are some of the moves. The emphasis is clearly to reduce the contact between the passenger, the airline personnel, and the airport personnel. And obviously, you will have to get your temperature checked many a times before you even board that plane, I guess, in the days ahead. So that is, in summary, some of the things I expect. But one of the things I think that I heard somebody refer earlier, middle seats are not going away. Middle seats are going to continue to be full in the days ahead as well, as we have seen many airlines across the world.
In fact, that is something that the aviation minister told us on ET now a couple of days back, and he in fact reiterated today as well that middle seats are very much going to stay. Having said that, Ajay, in your view, although we're still awaiting what the new SOPs and which will be the new routes that the airlines will start flying to first up only tomorrow. Having said that, in terms of, which are the routes that you think that the state governments as well as the centre will be more comfortable in to at least kickstart the operations from the 25th onwards?
See, my guess is as good as yours on that. I really have no insight in how the government is thinking. They've hinted in the past that it will be green zone to green zone or green to orange zones. But reality of the situation is aircraft are largely, airlines in India are largely designed for a lot of hub operations as well. So most of the bases of the airlines will be in key cities, and they will either have to ferry their crew out, let's say to a tier 2 city, to operate flights from there and bring them back with empty planes end of day or something like that. So I would imagine there will be a certain amount of metro city operations that will need to start as well going forward. But then how this will be managed or implemented is something we will only get to find out tomorrow when we hear from the Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation tomorrow.
That's right. The Union Minister for Civil Aviation will be holding a press conference at 3 p.m. when he will reveal it all. Ajay, this is Nayantara Rai. So just coming back to this entire move that the government is toying with, and it seems to be a done deal is what we are understanding from our sources, which is to cap airfares. I know you don't seem to be in favor of it. You rather they issue an advisory. Now, but having said that, the second part is determining what's going to be a fair and a sensible airfare. Even for the private sector to come in for evacuating overseas Indians, Hardeep Puri in the live webinar yesterday made it clear it's going to have to be at the rates that Air India is levying. So, for example, 13,000 rupees from the Gulf. It's up to the private carriers to decide if that's something that they're keen on. But if I could talk to you about the domestic flights, we understand at one time, for example, the airfare capping was being considered at 8,000 rupees for Delhi, Mumbai, one way. How do you arrive at a sensible airfare, the capping of it, that is?
See, I think, the sensible number really needs to come from a few factors. There's when an airline decides an airfare, basically factoring in the cost of the fuel that they have to carry or burn for that particular flight. They have average yields in terms of how many passengers will fly on a particular day. They have a lot of historical data on the basis of which they do that. At this point of time, I would expect for the first few days flights to be going full on if they kind of connect major cities with themselves. So those would be some factors to be factored in. Obviously, the price of fuel is very low at this point of time as compared to February or March, where the grounding had started for airlines. So from a current perspective, I would imagine 8,000 to 10,000 rupees would be a reasonably okay price to do a flight between Mumbai and Delhi for passengers in economy class. But again, it purely depends on how much do airlines want to recover, or make up for the past 2 months of grounding that they've been forced into and not being able to operate flights as well. That will also be a factor for, at least for the private carriers, at the back of their mind.
Ajay, hi, this is Ruchi here once again. The fact is that before coronavirus, the Ministry of Civil Aviation was pushing the Udan scheme in a big way. Do you think now with the new set of norms, the fact that there could be a price cap also coming in, this is going to hinder the government's own plans with respect to Udan?
See, with respect to Udan, there is a very specific thing we need to remember, and the fact is that Udan was financed by the Udan cess that was levied by the government. So basically, airlines would collect the cess, pass it on to a certain department in the ministry, I don't know which one, and then they would reimburse the Udan, the subsidy that they were giving out for Udan fares to the other airlines which were operating the routes. So at this point of time, for the past 2 months, we haven't seen any commercial flights operate, which means that cess would have evaporated, because I was made to understand that this happens on a month-to-month basis. So I would imagine that there is no funds out there right now for Udan. I personally would believe that Udan would not be a focus area for the time being. But yes, once commercial aviation picks up again, the government would start focusing on Udan again. I would imagine right now they would like to manage the situation to make sure people kind of, make it back to their home bases wherever they were stranded. And that would be the focus of the next maybe month or two of aviation operations being resumed.